Now, this was probably my most anticipated film still remaining in 2024. Ever since I saw that trailer a couple of months ago, I thought this thing looked really, really good, super unique. I was very interested to see how it turned out. And I have to say immediately, it's not really what I thought it was going to be, but that's not a bad thing. I'm going to go out on a limb here. This might be my favorite movie of 2024. It's that good. Let's talk about it.
I won't keep you if you wish to leave.
But I want you to choose which door to go through based on your faith.
What does this have to do with us leaving?
Everything.
So as I just said, Heretic stars Hugh Grant, and it's about two young religious women who are drawn into a game of cat and mouse in the house of a strange man. So anyone who's seen a trailer kind of knows what this is about, but there's a lot more going on in this. You have Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton. They're going around at the task of the church trying to recruit people to their faith. They knock on the door of Mr. Reed, played by Hugh Grant, and these girls find themselves in this diabolical cat and mouse game where they cannot leave his place. It is just so much fun, so smart. I don't know if I've ever seen another movie like this. And right off the bat, what drew a lot of people to this film is Hugh Grant getting in a horror film role. And I have to say and confirm, this guy is absolutely fucking fantastic in this role. I mean, he's absolutely flawless in this role. There's so many layers to his performance playing this creepy old guy. He never really goes full cartoon. He's always engaging with the questions he's asking these younger girls. And that's when this movie's at its best, okay? There's really two parts to this film. There's a religious angle of a conversation, then there's a horror movie. I think this movie, I don't want to say is better when it's in the religious angle, but it's just really, really smart and it's really engaging. You cannot pull your eyes off this movie. And a lot of this is because of Hugh Grant's performance as Mr. Reed. When he's tasking these girls with questions about their faith, he's presenting them with options, he's explaining things. It is a huge exposition dump, in theory, what they're trying to explain to you, how they're setting up this story. But he is so engaging on screen. He's so compelling when he's asking these questions, his mannerisms. He's got a very dark comedy tone to everything he's doing, even though it is very serious and very dreadful. I just think this guy is perfectly cast in this role. One of my favorite performances of the year. Hugh Grant. Clap it up, man. There's nothing else to do. Why this movie worked for me so much right off the bat is I'm a very existentialist person. I like to ponder faith. I'm somebody always in my head. I'm always just thinking about things. This movie is a thinker's movie. And I say that because it's presenting a lot of conversations. I feel like a lot of deep thinkers, people who think about life, the afterlife. It's presenting them in a way that is incredibly smart, incredibly profound. There's really no other movie I've seen, especially in horror, that has presented these questions in the way I like to talk about them and think like this. This movie feels like it was kind of ripped from my thoughts and put onto screen. The way they're discussing faith and the way they're talking logical fallacies. It is just so engaging. There's an existential dread to it for sure that is just forever mounting. There are definitely horror elements, but there are two parts to this film, and I think the religious side of this film is just absolutely fantastic if you're into that. There's just so many conversations they're having in this that I think are both thought-provoking and profound, so it won't be for everybody if you're not really into religious debate at all. How we got to believe, how did religions form, what makes you believe, how concrete are your beliefs? How did you come to believe in the first place? Is it unwavering? Were you just conditioned? Is everything you think in life conditioned? There's a lot of those conversations presented in the guise of a horror film that I just think is the perfect medium to explore these, especially when you have the visual elements and where this movie ends up going. And then you have the other side of this film, which is the horror side, where they build on their religion with horror. And I think that, as I just said, it's incredibly dreadful. It's not necessarily scary at points, but it's one of those movies I always describe as that tightness in your chest where it's just infinite dread, like you cannot get out of this situation. Based on effective conversation, they're able to build this dread up. You feel like you're with these girls, you're trying to get out of this house. The questions being presented, if not scary on screen, maybe scared you existentially. I think there's a lot of layers to the horror of this movie, which makes it so memorable and so unique. Again, I don't really think I've ever seen another movie that was able to do this as effectively. Also need to give my daily shout out to the fact that there's really no dumbass characters in this film. Both of the girls, pretty smart, pretty intuitive when it comes to problem solving. Mr. Reed, he covers his bases as well. So I really like that. Whenever you write a horror movie trying to be smart, you have smart characters, instantly gets me on board. 2 thumbs up. I said in the intro that this movie wasn't really what I thought it was going to be, and that's because I thought this movie was going to be a lot more traditional horror with some religion, but it's a lot more religion with some horror. So what you get out of this film is probably how engaging you find religious conversations, existentialism, because there's a lot of it in this film. So if that stuff is really captivating to you, you buy into this dialogue, you love Hugh Grant's performance, you're probably going to love this film. If you don't find that stuff interesting, you are here for a pure horror film, movie might not be for you. You might get lost about the halfway point. I have to repeat, for me, this movie was just captivating. Every time it took a turn, every time these characters were presented with a question, they were questioning their beliefs, something tied into the story. When they end up going through one of the doors and the story starts unraveling, you see Mr. Reed's incentives. His character starts building, you get some reveals for him, the final ending. I think a big problem people have when they discuss religion or movies try to tackle religion or any form of art is it comes off pandering or preachy, and it just comes off like there's a narrative. I think the stuff they're presenting in this film is just holistically thought-provoking. Whether you are super religious, whether you're an atheist, I think everybody has a stance in this film where you'll think, oh, that person's making a good point. What does it mean to be faithful? Just things that you don't really think about every single day. You take for granted a little bit because they're just subconscious beliefs we all have. I think this movie will really dig some of that up for people who like to think about it. And I think that's very powerful in art. We don't get that too much anymore, especially in a way where it doesn't feel preachy and pandering. It just feels very intelligent. I really like that. And it really builds into the characters as well. So there's a central story that's unfolding around it. If I have to sit here and think of a negative to go for, and I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel here to come up with anything I didn't like, maybe the pure scares, like jump scares, things like that. There's not as many of them as I wanted, but as I said, the tension, the dread, it's relentless. I think the scares here are very effective. But again, if you're going here for just scares, just jump scares, you're not into a religious angle, then maybe this movie won't be for you. But again, it was really engaging for me, so I thought it all tied together perfectly. To me, Heretic succeeds because there's not a lot of movies that are willing to tackle such sensitive source material while also being open-minded enough to understand that not everybody agrees with what they're trying to say, presenting logical points to both sides, religion and atheism, or just the diversity of religions, how they all differ and what gets people on board. Are you conditioned? Did you do your research? Do you fall into a wormhole of research where you just get addicted to finding the true leader? All the way up into the ending, which I thought was absolutely genius. The questions they're presenting, the way this movie ends, the final 5 minutes, I was kind of wondering where this movie's going to go, how they were going to wrap this up, because there's so many moving parts, so many layers to this, and I thought they managed to stick it, and that is a rarity for a movie that tries to be this deep, but I really think they do. So yeah, I mean, I could gloat about this movie for 10 more minutes. There's really no point at this point. You know what my review of this film is. This movie's fucking awesome. If this video gets enough traction, maybe I'll do a full spoiler review or something, because I don't want to give too much away of what happens when they get into the house, because I want you guys to experience it like I did. It is just so good. Go check it out. If you haven't seen Heretic, go see it. If you have, comment down below. Let me know what you think. As always, if you haven't subscribed, join me down below. Love talking to you. Peace.